Welcome to RGBA, Colorful Tech News and Reviews. This is episode 97. My name is Alexandre Vallière-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tade Menard. All right, let's start with a little bit of follow-up. So, why aren't we getting the new keyboard, Starter? Explain that to me.
Because we're not. No.
Yeah, but more details, please.
I think last show we talked about people with the 2016 and 17 MacBook Pros. They're going to get the new keyboards. Well, we're not exactly going to get the new keyboards if ever our keyboards are defective. So I think it's something to do with they can't replace the whole case and add the little rubber pieces there that they're adding now on the new keyboards.
Yeah, it's that and the battery too, because since the 2018 now has DDR5 RAM instead of LDDR4, it's DDR RAMs that need more power. So to compensate, Apple increased the whole battery size. Therefore, the space in between the chassis and the battery is smaller. So you cannot fit as much as before. So the new keyboards are slimmer and are differently made. Plus, they also have the plastic, and I think the keycaps are also like 0.5 millimeter thinner. So all this makes up for a different keyboard in 2018. So not too sure what exactly is the replacement keyboards for the past year's MacBook Pro in that new long-term repair program. Most probably they change like the build components, like maybe the metals are maybe a little bit sturdier, maybe the general toughness of the keyboard is increased, but I don't think that the design still helps to prevent dust from getting sticked on. So yeah, it's probably better, but not that much if you get it replaced.
I went to the Apple store to see the new keyboards, and there's a noticeable difference. It's a lot mushier. Yeah.
So it's kind of like halfway between the old 2015 and the new ones, or still closer to the new ones?
Still closer to the new ones.
Cool. Yeah, I have to go there this weekend, most probably.
They say there's not more travel, but it sure feels like it if there's like more travel in the queue. So I guess it's just the mushiness that I don't know how to explain it. It's weird. You'll see.
Okay, cool. All right, so last week we were discussing the big post that Federico Viticci was about to publish on his blog in the coming days. The post was actually called App Preservation, Saving the App Store's History. This is a subject that Viticci has been talking about for years. If you were one of the listeners of the virtual podcast, one of the first podcasts to launch with the Relay Network, when they launched the network, there was a lot of discussion about how to play old games, how to keep like 80s and 90s game working in 2000 and the future, so that these gems, these little piece of hard work, were not lost to the time. So, and he basically applies the same thinking to apps, because right now we have a big divide that happened last September when 32-bit apps were not able to run anymore, and so many games from the very early days of the App Store are now basically gone if you update your devices or if you replace your devices with new ones. And the only way to play with those games is to keep close to you an old phone, basically running older version of iOS and 32-bit support. But even that, like a single app has evolved tremendously over the years. Like one of the first app that you mentioned you downloaded was eBay, and that app evolved a lot. In this case, it's not a game, it's like a service app, so it makes sense that you don't really keep versions of it. But for games, like the very first, Plant vs. Zombie, compared to the latest version today, has evolved tremendously. And there's also games that were one-hit wonders that were super popular at the beginning of the App Store and eventually fade off into time, or the developers were hired by larger companies and they now work on more prestigious games, but still they would like to keep their app around and have it played, but there's no real solution for that. And the problem with the App Store is that there's also the whole signature chain security thing that prevents people from, let's say, launching a classic app store with classic games. That's not possible. There needs to be Apple involvement. So that's basically, I think, the gist of his article. Did I miss anything about that?
I think that's pretty much it. I didn't read the whole thing. It's a classic Federico article. It's super long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, links will be in the show notes if you want to read the whole story. So, moving on to the most important, the news of the hour this week is the 2018 MacBook Pro Core i9s were received by reviewers, press, buyers, and they started to run benchmarks and they found numbers which were interesting. And then they started to actually run Pro software, Final Cut Pro rendering, Adobe Premiere rendering, audio processing, and there were a couple of problems. The first video that I stumbled across was Dave2D, fellow Canadian YouTube reviewer, who did a MacBook Pro Core i9 fully spec'd except for the storage test, and he discovered a couple of problems. On certain tests, mainly Adobe Premiere, the 2017, so last year's Core i7, the highest CPU, was faster than this year's current Core i9. So last generation, not even the same level of performance, was sometimes faster. Also, when you were running the Core i9 this year's MacBook Pro, doing a big render in Final Cut, so that's Apple software, the percentage of the battery, even though you were plugged in the wall and 100%, was going down. So but maybe like every few minutes, you would lose 1% of battery. So for most people, even some professionals, it's okay because you won't run down all the way to 1%. But there are some people who do like VR and stuff like that could launch a rendering that can take like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. And for those people, that's bad because that means that even plugged in, the computer cannot be used to do the rendering appropriately. Also, another thing that he pointed out is after seeing those numbers, he wanted to basically look at the CPU temperature, the CPU clock speed to know what's happening. Because sometimes when a CPU is running too hot, it lowers its clock speed for a certain time to recover and then goes back up. But what he discovered is that instead of doing like a gentle slope down to a slower, let's say you go from 2.9 gigahertz down to 2.7 gigahertz, and then after a while, if you're still running hot, maybe you go down to 2.2 gigahertz. Well, instead of doing that, it would spike down like from 2.9 all the way to like 800 megahertz, and then back up to 2 point something, then radically go down like a big spike down, like a big drop to in 1 gigahertz. So this is not how a CPU usually throttles itself when it is having problems. And finally, he did a funny test that a lot of people were getting psyched about, is that he put his brand new computer in the freezer and ran the exact same Final Cut test. And what happened? Well, the computer was 30% faster. So all that basically went around the internet. Everybody picked up on his video. Everybody started discussing it. People were comparing tests, were comparing software, versions. So what we learned after all that is that this is not only his unit. Everyone has similar problems. If not the same, something that reacts in a similar way, which confirms that there's a large issue at hand. And then, a couple of days later, we have updates. Apple acknowledges the problem, even apologizes for it. So that's not a first, but it's rarely the case. They explain that there's supposed to be a firmware signing keys or whatever, like a part of this firmware code in the power management system that was missing or badly set up, whatever, which caused the CPU and the fan not to behave in tandem. So one was trying something, the other one was reacting not the right way, and in the end, they were like kind of like desynchronized. And instead of running full, like a higher fan speed to cover for the heat generation, it was going down, and then the CPU itself is asking like the fan system for help, not receiving it and then dropping the frequency so fast to prevent damage. So it was like a big misunderstanding between parts of your computer. And Apple released a macOS update for that, a supplemental update to fix the problem. And this really seems to fix the problem. Dave2D posted yesterday night a follow-up video of the same test he did, and also iPhone also did something similar, and all of the problems we have were gone. So the Core i7 is not as faster than the Core i9 of this year. The Core i9 is about 30% faster than it was before, so that's amazing. If you were on the edge to get the Core i9 right now with the new specs, it really is worth it. The rendering does not drop the CPU percentage while you're using it plugged in, so that's even better. And there's no more spikes or drops on the CPU frequency. If you run, for example, Fortnite in a window while you're on your desktop, you do have frame rates dropping at a point where the game is lagging. But if you look at the actual throttling of the CPU, it's a gentle slope that goes down slightly and slowly. It's not like an abrupt drop that you go from 2.9 to like 800. You just go down and you go down lower. You don't go as far as before. So all in all, every test is better. Every benchmark using real tools is better. And the cool thing is that both Adobe and Apple reached out to all those reviewers to get exact details on what software, what's the test, if they could even share some project source to replicate in their own laboratory and basically try to fix the problem. So there was a big reach out by Apple. So props up to Apple. That's very good to do.
You remember they were talking about this pro apps team?
Yep.
Like, what are they doing if they didn't notice this?
I have no clue. I'm guessing that it's not something that happened to every computer that Apple produced, especially not maybe the one internally. Maybe it was part of the deployment process that the firmware software was missing something that prevented it to behave normally. So it's probably like in the final production unit run that there was a problem. So that's why they didn't pick it up. I don't think they do full test once the units are out. So maybe that's a problem. Maybe they'll need to do more QA on that. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess from now on, they're really going to be checking this.
Yeah, well, they're probably going to add more checks to be sure that if there are keys or signatures missing or something, that it can be easily fixed. So one other video that he posted, Dave Lee, he posted one more with comparing other i9 computers with the MacBook Pro. That was before the fix. So what he said is that it's not the only computer that has the Core i9. It's not the only computer that is throttling the CPU down. But overall, it was one of the slowest because of that issue with the missing keys or whatever. So now he tried it again, compared it again with other big gaming laptop or other small, thin laptops with the i9. And overall, it's still not the fastest because those big, large, super souped up fan computers are cooling the processor much more rapidly, therefore giving it better performance. But if you compare the MacBook Pro to the other slim ones, they are actually it's actually quite good in terms of performance. It's up there. But the best of all is that it's a lot less noisy. So that's one of the big factors if you get a MacBook Pro, is that you don't have fans spinning in your in your ears all day long.
Were you going to say in your hair?
In your head?
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you didn't have fans spinning in your hair all day long.
Oh yeah. Or that could also be something useful though. If it's hot.
Yeah, that's a concern for me.
All right. So yeah, that's I think that's about it for this issue. I think I summarized the whole thing. Need to drink some water now.
But realistically, how many people bought this machine?
Well, we don't know. Apple doesn't tell us.
Right, but it must be like such a small group, and it blew up.
Well, actually, the fix is also for all the computers with those generation of CPU. So in theory, your Core i7 should also benefit from a little performance boost. So yes, Core i9 is not exactly the top selling SKU if you want for the computer, but given the price that these computers are now, I'm guessing it's a big share of the pie. Because like the i9 itself, it's not that expensive. It really gets expensive when you start adding the new SSDs up to 4 terabytes. That basically doubles the price. But otherwise, from base model to Core i9, there's a jump. But for a pro user, that makes sense. And I don't think you're gonna give your 15-year-old a $6,000 MacBook Pro computer for school. So, all right. So we had a new anniversary very recently.
Yeah. So the iPhone 3G turned 10, and in our little community, there's this like Mac or historian or like Apple historian. His name is Stephen Hackett. His site is 512pixels.net, and he's also on a bunch of podcasts, and he's the co-founder of the RGBAfm network. But he wrote a super nice article on Mac Stories about the whole history of the iPhone 3G since it's been 10 years already. I feel like it was 10 years for the other iPhone, so it's already been a year for wow, okay. So I don't know, did you have one of these?
Yep, not at first. I got it later because I was still running the iPhone 2G when the 3G came out. And it's only when you started to see broken iPhone 3G on Kijiji that I started to buy some parts. To my idea was to get people's broken phone and try to mix parts together to actually get a fully working phone. So that was fun because I managed to get a screen from my sister's boyfriend, and I was able to find a broken down iPhone 3G on Kijiji for $40. So I was able to get those two parts together, but while assembling it, I broke one of the pins for the home button. So the home button wasn't working anymore. So I still assembled it. Then I plugged it in my computer. I used iTunes to reset it. Then I looked up the serial number, and it was still on warranty. So I said, oh, okay. So if I have a fully complete iPhone, that is, okay, a Frankenstein phone, but still, it was still an iPhone 3G. I went to the Apple store, said, hey, my home button is broken. And then they replaced the whole front panel. So the cheap Chinese-made screen I got from my sister's boyfriend was crap, but it still worked. And Apple didn't notice. And they basically replaced the whole assembly, the touch panel and everything, the home button for a brand new display assembly for free. So I had a maybe a couple months old iPhone 3G with a brand new display assembly for $40.
Yeah, that was the good old days when they didn't check anything. That just gave you another phone right off a refurbished phone. But it was so easy. I think I got like 4 iPhone 4s because I just go in because I dropped it or whatever, and it was nicked on a corner. And I'd say the phone would get hot and the battery would drain. And they say, oh, no problem. Just go over to the Genius Bar, no appointment, nothing. And they just give you a new phone straight out of the box.
Yeah, but that didn't scale.
Yeah, it didn't. No, I think like starting with the iPhone 5 or 5S, they started really checking and having this. They plug your phone in and they do like a bunch of tests and they say, no, you're lying or whatever.
Yeah, which makes sense because at scale that doesn't really work. Like iPhone 3G, fine, it was made of plastic. It was probably cheaper to make than the iPhone 2G.
And it's crazy too. It's the same phone if you think about it. It's exactly the same phone, same internals, same camera, same everything except for the 3G network.
Yep.
So it's just basically another antenna probably or something like that imagine today if they release a new iPhone 10 next year, well, this fall, and all they add is like 5G or whatever the new network capability is. Like people would go mad.
Yeah, that wouldn't pass for sure.
And it's even cheaper. Like you said, it's made of plastic. It felt good though in that, like in the hand. I love that phone.
Yeah. When I moved to my iPhone 4, that's what I lost. I lost the comfort of the rounded plastic back to a nicer looking glass design, but not as good in your hand. So, but still, I love that little guy.
Yeah, my girlfriend had a 3G, and I had a friend that had a 3GS. I really envied him, and I didn't get a new phone until the 4.
Yeah, me too. I skipped the 3GS. I tried to do the same technique of getting like broken phone from Kijiji, but for some reason the 3GS people were maybe better used to the iPhone, and maybe cases were more readily available, so they were less busted screen on Kijiji. Or people started to understand that even though your screen is busted, your phone is not worth $40 anymore. It can still be sold for a couple hundreds.
Yeah,
so,
it's not a Nokia flip phone.
Exactly. But people were figuring out, because it's broken, okay, I lost my money, now it's worth like $40 and that's it. I'm going to sell it for that $40 and life goes on. But then they realized that if the phone is $500 and it's broken, you can probably sell it for maybe $300 easily.
I know. Even in the 3G, when my girlfriend bought her 3G, she bought it on Kijiji. So she went to meet this guy in a parking lot, and he sold it for like $300. It was basically nothing at the time.
Yep. So talking about the resale value of broken down phones or used phone, the iPhone 10 is achieving like a never seen before resale value of 85%.
They still make those? I thought it was canceled.
This rumor thing and normal people will never cease to amuse me.
I haven't had it in a while, though, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, there's a liquidation specialist called B-Stock who is reporting that most models are selling for an average of 85% of the original price, which is quite impressive. Even like bulk purchaser, let's say that you are a refurbishing company and you want to buy like a lot of iPhone 10 that needs to be refurbished, repackaged, or whatever, that even with that amount of purchase, you still get them for 75% of retail pricing. So it still keeps the value quite high. So if you want to sell your iPhone 10 before the iPhone 11, you can go right in and you'll probably get a good amount of money for it.
Yeah, you know what? I just thought about that because I have here on the desk laying, I have a 6S. Yeah. So that's the trick, they say, is to sell it, in August maybe? So like normal people don't know when it's coming out yet. Switch back to an older phone, but you want to have like an older, decent phone if you want.
Yeah, because if you go back to an iPhone 4, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah. So I'd have to have kept my 7 or say something like that. But 6S is not too bad. And then you have to tough it out for like 2 months and get the new phone right away. That's how you upgrade every year on a budget if you want, or playing it smart. But I really don't think I'm going to do it. No, I don't think I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep this one for a little while.
Yeah. Well, you think people are still like not understanding that there's a new one every year?
Yeah.
It's been 10 years, man.
No, people don't know. Trust me.
Jeez. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. I did that for my iPhone 3G to 4. So when the 4 came out, I pre-ordered it with Fido. But before I could get my hands on it, I sold my 3G with a bunch of accessories like battery cases, like separate cases, like stylized and stuff like that, screen protectors, like a bunch of crap I had lying around for that phone, and I was able to get it like $340 for it. Something that I paid $40, I got like $300 in the green, so that was great. And I spent the money on the 4. So yeah, but now that 85% is amazing. So how much did you pay for
For the phone?
Yeah.
Full retail.
Which is about, with taxes?
15.
15? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's $13.29 plus tax.
Yeah, so you can still have about $1,200 for it used.
That's not too bad.
It's a great amount of money. If you're able to find somebody who wants to purchase it.
Right, that's the only problem. I really don't think there's people that are willing to pay. I had a lot of trouble selling my 7 for like $500, so I can't even imagine trying to sell this for 12.
The higher the price, the harder it is to get somebody to buy it. So even though it's in perfect shape and you get all the accessories in the box and everything, and you're the sole proprietor of the iPhone, not something you bought used, even then it's hard. Like the price is hard. It's like houses. Finding a house for $200K is easy. Finding a buyer, it's even easier. But finding a buyer for a $2 million house, even though there's lots of people who wants to buy those houses, they just, for that price, they want exactly it as they want. And they don't want like to have your old shit or your colors or whatever. So it's getting harder.
And there's like a threshold of, I'd say like $500. You can't sell anything over $500 on Kijiji or Laypack, though, all the classified ad things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think I sold stuff for more than that. I don't remember what, though.
Your camera.
Yeah, well, yeah, the camera for sure. Yeah. But, yeah, probably other things too.
I just feel that it feels harder. And I at that price, I like personally, I'd rather buy it used for $200 more. Not used, sorry, new, instead of buying it used. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the same. At least you have the full year of warranty if ever something happens. All right, so someone pulled together an extreme archive of iPhone and Mac wallpapers going back to 15 years. So in the show notes, you'll find a link to a tweet by Mike Rundle, who shares 2 Google albums of wallpapers. So for the iOS wallpapers, you have everything right down to the original wallpapers, full size. There's even a couple of them that are animated, like video wallpapers for the iPhone 10. That archive is incredible. There's so many wallpapers. It's impressive. And it's a real trip to memory lane just to go down the page, which goes from iOS 12 at the top to iOS 1 at the bottom. Well, sorry, iPhone OS. And it's fun to see all of the evolution of the wallpapers. And for macOS, same thing. You have the very latest one that came from the MacBook Pro of this year, kind of liquid metal with colors and stuff. And then you have all of the macOS Mojave day and night wallpapers and the gradients also. There's a bunch of them, all the way down to the very, very, very first wallpapers in the list, which were the solid colors that came, I guess, with macOS 10.0. And then after that, we finally got the 5K version of the original galaxies and the tiger, the swoosh and everything. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I didn't see I'm looking at the iOS one. There's missing like iOS. Oh no, there was no wallpapers back then. Or were they?
Yeah. And earlier on.
You can do home screen, but you could do lock screen.
Lock screen, not home screen.
Right.
Eventually, I think it was like iOS 3 or 4. That's when they introduced wallpapers.
I think it was 3.
Yeah.
But only for like the new phones. You couldn't do it on the iPhone 2G.
Yeah, there was a performance somewhat.
Yeah, there was a performance problem. Lots of performance problems back then.
Yeah. I think it came with the clownfishes with iOS 3. So.
And again, the guy Stephen Hackett from 512 Pixels, he says by far his most popular page is always the macOS background page.
Yeah, makes sense.
I use that background on my computer actually, like a Tiger, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I use the what's it called, Unsplash wallpaper thing. So I have something living in my menu bar, and I can click it and have a little suggestions of wallpaper from those pictures. So just hit the refresh button a couple times. You'll find someone you like. Not someone, but someone. You find one you like, and you just hit set as wallpaper, and that's it. So I can get very nice landscape, nice oceans, fishies, dolphins, whatever. And just hit set as wallpaper, and you're done. So,
I never see my wallpaper actually, so it doesn't matter.
I have my hot corners from the bottom left set to show desktop. So if there's a file on desktop I want, or if I want to look at the wallpaper, I can do it like that.
Yeah, mine's the right, but I don't look at my wallpaper. I just take whatever's on my desktop and then go back in the hot corner and drop it somewhere. But
okay.
I mean, the Windows days of minimizing everything to your taskbar and trying to see your desktop. You know, they had a dedicated button there, show desktop, so you can go click on my computer to go get files and all that.
Yeah, but it wasn't there at first. I think it came with like XP. Windows 7 XP.
I never used anything past XP, and we had it in XP.
Okay, but I think it was like not a default option. You had to go in and
activate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. All right, so that's it for episode number 97. You can find the show notes and all the links we discussed at rgba.fm/97. You can find us on Twitter at _RGBAfm. Personally, I'm Vallier, VALLIERES.
And I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.